This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio. Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. Coming up on this week's show, a review of Carnival Vista. Now, I know what you're thinking. We did Carnival Vista a few months back, but this time it was with a guest who was stuck right in the middle of all those propulsion issues and kind of gave us some context with the crew of what's really going on and what they're going to be doing once the ship goes into the repair mode, which is happening right now where it's not sailing. But first, as always, staff writer Richard Sims is here with Cruise News. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug.
So we kick things off this week with a not so great development for those would-be passengers on that Villa V Odyssey 3.5-year world cruise.
Yeah, I'm starting to think it's going to be 3.5 years before the ship sails, if it ever does. Every week we seem to be playing the will they or won't they sail game. And if this week you put your money on them not sailing, you win. Unfortunately, that's not good news for the people who are waiting to sail. Although the company said that the Odyssey's sea trials were a success, it turns out there's more certifications and more, hoops that they have to jump through, so the ship isn't ready to sail. But the real problem is they're basically running out of money. So there have been a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there have been a fair amount of people who have been kind of part-time living on the ship. There are people who bought rooms on the ship and have gone to Belfast, where the ship is. And during the day, they are staying on the ship. And then at night, they're being sent to hotels. And up until now, the people at Villa V have been covering their off-ship expenses. Unfortunately, those people received a note earlier this week saying that they would no longer be able to have their expenses covered for at least a week, might be longer. Apparently, they've been burning through so much money that they just can't afford to do this anymore. And for at least one couple, it's proven to be the straw that, well, it didn't break the camel's back, but it definitely bent it out of shape. If you've been following the adventures of Steve and Angela, they go by Midlife Cruising on YouTube, they've been posting a lot of stuff about being on the ship and being in Belfast and their adventure. And they've been kind of relentlessly positive, honestly, despite the fact that there have been a lot of hiccups and they're having to, leave the ship every night and come back every day. But getting this note saying that the company would no longer be able to pay those expenses left them saying, you know what, we can't afford this. We can't. Angela and Steve said, we can't afford to stay in a hotel for a week and pay all of our own expenses. So they're going back to the United States, and they said this time they will not be coming back. They've gone back and forth a few times, I think 4 times maybe. But this time they're saying they will not come back until they have it in writing that the ship is definitely ready to sail. It's kind of funny because, like I said, they've been really positive about this whole experience. But in their latest video, there's like some cracks showing because I guess they had people tell them in the comments that they didn't have to keep coming back because they weren't told that the ship was ready. And Angela's like, no, we were told the ship is ready to sail, and that's why we came back. So this time they're going home and they're staying there until the ship is ready to sail. My big question is, if they can't continue to afford to pay the basic expenses of their guests staying in hotels during this, where is their operating money going to come from? Because once the ship set sails, it's not like, these people have bought passage. And yes, there's monthly fees and stuff like that, but where is the actual big amount of money that is going to be needed moving forward going to come from, other than they are doing rentals on board? There are some rooms that you can go on for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. Reporting indicates that the prices on that has really jacked up. And I assume that's because they are having these financial problems. So this continues to be a story that, honestly, I feel like we're going to be reporting this for a while because it just doesn't seem like the ship is going to be setting sail anytime soon.
And next we have some tragic news to report following an incident on a Royal Caribbean ship.
absolutely awful situation. Family was taking a cruise. It was a member of the group's birthday. That was the reason that they were taking this family cruise. They were on Harmony of the Seas, sailing out of Galveston, and apparently, a 12-year-old who was a member of the traveling party fell off the balcony. Now, this is a ship. A lot of times when you hear somebody falling off a balcony, they fall into the water. In this case, this is one of those ships that has sort of the middle cut out, and it has that big Central Park area. And the child fell off the balcony and crashed down into the Central Park area and died. If not on impact, certainly shortly thereafter. There's no word on exactly how it happened, just lots of speculation. But it's a kid and a balcony, and maybe the chairs were pushed too close. Maybe somebody wasn't paying attention. You don't know. We don't have any idea, and I really probably shouldn't even speculate. The ship's next sailing was delayed slightly due to the investigation into what happened. Obviously, our thoughts go to not only the family, but really everybody on board, because when something like that happens during your cruise, that's very traumatic. So definitely sending our thoughts to everyone on the ship involved in this horrible situation.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine the first responders on scene like that just has to stick with you, right, for a while.
Yeah. And it's so different than, most of the time when we hear about people going overboard, like I said, it's overboard into the ocean. Very often the body is not found, which is also a different kind of hell, because I have to imagine if you have a family member who goes overboard and they are not found, that you spend the rest of your life thinking, well, they could be out there somewhere, whereas this is a situation where if there is a, plus side is a terrible way to put it. If there's a positive, they certainly know what the fate of their family member was, but does that make it any better?
Yeah.
No.
We kicked off the show about a world cruise, and we're going to throw another one in here. Royal Caribbean just completed one, but this one actually was pulled off with success.
Yeah, right. This one, for one thing, it actually happened. It's hard to believe it's over already, because I feel like we just started talking about this, a few months ago, but no. Serenade of the Seas just completed a 274-day ultimate world cruise. Huge trip, hitting like 150 ports of call, 60 countries, 7 continents. There were obviously some bumps along the way, because that's going to happen when you're, any ship, you're going to run into some difficulties. But when you're doing a 274-day cruise, that's 274 days in which bad things can happen. So there were some minor hiccups, but mostly it went great. I think the reason that this particular cruise got so much attention was that there were a whole lot of people on board covering every aspect on various platforms, especially TikTok. This became a TikTok sensation. The problem with it is some of the quote unquote influencers, whether they were real influencers or were using this to try and become an influencer, they were first time cruisers. And I'm sure that helped generate some positive buzz among their audience. But there were also people on board who were, to say the least, trying to sensationalize their time on board. Probably the most famous was a young man who claimed that he was in the dining room and he said the word Titanic, and everything came to a stop, and waiters dropped their glasses and women clutched their pearls. And, because you can't say Titanic on board a ship, which is absolutely not true. Nothing about that was true. It's absolutely ridiculous. For example, I was on the Queen Mary in July, and there is a huge section of the ship dedicated to the fact that the Queen Mary 2 was involved in the rescues the night that the Titanic sank. There's things all over the ship about it. Every cruiser at some point or another has gone to the front of the ship and done, I'm Titanic, I'm king of the world. So there were a lot of people who were doing and saying things that were absolutely ridiculous, and that generated, probably got them a lot of clicks, but also generated some not so great publicity, or not even publicity, but reinforced negative stereotypes about the cruise industry. And that's really not what anyone needs. But the good news is it was a great trip for everybody. It was 274 days. They completed it. So, I suspect we will see a lot more of these long-term attention-getting voyages coming down the pike.
Meanwhile, Carnival has sent an important reminder to guests regarding dress codes.
Usually when you talk about dress codes and it becomes like a heated conversation, it involves the fact that someone is very upset because another person wore a baseball cap or flip-flops in the main dining room. But this time, it was actually a bit more important as it involved what you can and can't wear when leaving the ship in certain ports. And this comes up a couple times a year. But Brand Ambassador John Heel got a very angry email from someone who got off the ship in Nassau and was sent back on board the ship because of what they were wearing. And what they were wearing specifically was camo or camouflage. And there are certain ports where you cannot do that. A lot of them are ones with military presences, and they don't want to take the chance of cruisers being confused with or for actual, military personnel. It's not just the Bahamas, though. There are other places such as Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago that very strictly enforce this. When you get off the ship, and usually, I'd be very surprised if there wasn't an announcement made regarding this. I know that several times when I have been to ports where camouflage is not allowed, they make an announcement about it, or at least have a sign or something in the daily program saying, hey, be aware, you cannot wear this here. So just remember, when you're packing for your next trip, I mean, honestly, it's best to just leave the camo at home anyway. But if you might want to check and make sure that it is something you would be able to wear in the ports of call that you're going to be visiting.
And we're going to end on an expensive note.
Very expensive, in fact. And this is what you might call a self-inflicted wound in some ways. So back at the very end of 2018, a woman on a Carnival ship was attacked by a crew member. We don't need to get into the details. It was a sexual assault. That's the important part here. She turned around, filed a lawsuit against the company, and it was ruled that they needed to pay. In 2022, when the case finished, it was ruled that Carnival needed to pay $10.2 million in damages to this woman. Carnival made what I think personally was an unwise decision to sort of appeal this. And I think it's unwise on two levels. First of all, it's going to bring more attention to a situation that you no doubt do not want to draw more attention to. But more importantly, what ended up happening was that as a result of them stalling, as a result of them filing this appeal, another $2 million was tacked on. So instead of $10 million, they have now been ordered to pay the woman $12 million as a result of the incident. It's, like I said, I think it was just a poor decision. She was accusing Carnival of being negligent in their hiring and staffing, of not following protocols, and subjecting her to false imprisonment because the guy basically trapped her in a closet, and inflicting emotional distress. And that just is not the kind of thing that you want to have drag out. I mean, from either side, obviously, but it just seemed like a bad decision for Carnival to say, yeah, we've got this ruling that we don't like, so we're going to try and appeal it. And clearly the judge felt the same way, because as a result, not only did they uphold the ruling, but they tacked another $2 million onto it. So $12 million to this woman as a result of these lawsuits.
Something we didn't cover here is Carnival hit a piece of ice in Alaska on Carnival Spirit, and the ship was at a standstill for 3 hours while divers checked out the hull. Do we have anything else on that?
I don't think that we think of ships as hitting icebergs anymore. That's a very Titanic thing. Oh no, I said the word Titanic. Everybody clutch your pearls and drop your glasses. But it does happen. I feel like even just a couple months ago, it happened with another ship.
Yeah, NCL in 2022.
Yeah, okay. That's not more than a few months. I guess I have no sense of time. It does occasionally happen. Fortunately, there was no severe damage. I don't think there's any damage really worth mentioning. But yes, they did have to bring everything to a halt, and they sent divers down to take a look at it. And so, yes, it does still happen.
All right. Staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, my friend.
Glad to be here.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
Tim and his wife just returned from that plagued Carnival Vista cruise ship. It was supposed to go down to Amber Cove, Grand Turk, and Half Moon. It did keep Half Moon, but just went to Nassau and Freeport instead of the other two. He joins us on the line. How you doing, Tim?
I don't want to make it sound like we're going to complain completely, but of course there's going to be a lot of talk about what went wrong with this cruise.
A situation that's been ongoing since the ship launched in the spring of 2016, and they just can't seem to get a hold on it, no matter how many dry docks and emergency dry docks and out of services they do. So before we get to the ship itself and kind of the derailment of the itinerary, we'll take a step back here and give me some pre-cruise thoughts. You're up in Fargo. What made you want to jump down here and take that 6-nighter on Vista?
Well, when we booked this one, we had already done 2 other cruises this year. We had done back in February, we went to Europe, and I did a review with you guys on Cruise Radio on that, so you people can check that one out. And then we also did New York and did Venezia and went to Bermuda. And so between the first two cruises, those were very sightseeing. Europe was very port intensive, and we did a lot of sightseeing on the move. New York, we had never been there before, so we took in tons of sights for about 4 days before we got on the ship and did that. So we wanted relaxation. So we booked this one because Half Moon is a beautiful beach. Grand Turk's a beautiful beach. And we were going to hit Jack's Shack. And Amber Cove, we were just going to sit by the pool. This was going to be a relaxing cruise.
Well, I guess we'll soon find out if it was as relaxing as you wanted it to be. Let me ask you this, though. You've been jumping around to different cruise lines quite a bit lately. Are you back to just Carnival now?
Yeah, we've kind of been all over. We started, our very first cruise was Royal Caribbean on Enchantment. And then our next, I don't know how many cruises, were all Carnival. And then, after the pandemic and the startup, we did do a couple more Royal Caribbeans, and then Europe was an MSC. So we kind of go, because when we pick, we're going by price, where we're going, and the ship. I mean, because what kind of amenities the ship has. So we're not one cruise line specific, but we've done, out of the 13, we've done 9 of them are Carnivals.
All right, so you go from Fargo, North Dakota, down to Orlando and then over to Port Canaveral. Any pre-cruise time?
We just we flew in a day early, so we just had, we didn't get in until about 5 o'clock, so it was just kind of checking the hotel and then enjoy the hotel that night and then get on the ship the next morning.
Do you stay at a hotel at the port or in the Orlando area?
This is only our 3rd time out of Orlando, and the other times we stayed in Cocoa Beach area. This time we actually stayed in Orlando at a Drury Inn, where they're a hotel we really, really like, and it was a little bit further away, but we really wanted to stay there. We are planning a trip there with our kids next year, so we wanted to kind of check it out beforehand and stuff.
And Drury Inn has that good breakfast bar, too.
Yeah, it's what you got to try not to eat before you get on the ship
right.
in the morning. And they also do a what's called a 5:30 manager's kickback in the evening, which is pretty nice. And you get free drinks there and stuff, too. So.
All right, so you make your way to Port Canaveral, and before you board the ship, now, prior to sailing, Carnival sent out an email saying, hey, our ship's messed up. What did they say? You could cruise and get a $200 onboard credit or just cancel and get a complete refund?
we were offered a $200 onboard credit if we still failed, or we could cancel and get a full refund. And this is where not only us, but, we joined a Facebook group for the sailing. And so before this interview, I did put out a poll and ask people their opinions about what they felt. And between when we talked to people on board and everything, the canceling thing for so many, just like us, with the flights and the hotel already booked and time off from work and everything, it just kind of almost becomes impossible to cancel, even if you really wanted to, for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the people that went, it seems, they went for that same reason, that canceling was just going to be too difficult.
So only $200 per cabin.
It was $200 per cabin, and there became another complaint.
$200 per person, I could see that, but per cabin, especially if you're traveling with a family of 4, that gets eaten up quickly.
Yeah, and that's where the complaints came, that it was per cabin, and it didn't matter if you were in a suite or an interior, 2 people, 4 people. It was just $200. So yeah, there was some people that, they had 3 or 4 people in their cabin, and they're like, we got $50 each, so. How
was embarkation, and how long did it take you to get from the curb to the ship?
This is another one of the issues that happened when we, the night before, we received text from Carnival saying that we should come a half an hour later than our scheduled time. We had Faster to the Fun, and even our scheduled time was 10 a.m. anyway. I managed to get an early time. So we still headed off really early, and they let us, I'm sure we were there just shortly after 10. They let us in Faster to Fun. We went in, we got through security, checked in and everything really fast, and went and sat down in chairs and waited and waited and waited until I'm also have to look, but I want to say it was like 1:00 before we got to get on the ship.
Yikes. So you were sitting in the terminal that whole time then for 3 hours.
Yes, and we were one of the lucky ones because we were in there first, but there was a ton of people. The terminal filled up to capacity, and so people had to stay outside in the heat and everything, and they would not let them in. And yeah, it became, I don't want to say nasty, but people were pretty upset how they were being treated outside, I guess. We weren't out there, but a lot of people were pretty upset about that, and they never explained why. The big delay.
Yeah, that always sucks. You make your way on board this ship. What were your first impressions of Carnival Vista?
Beautiful ship. The Vista class is one of our favorites. This being on the Vista now, we've sailed all 3 of them because we really love them. And that funnel's beautiful. Yeah, we love the layout of the ship. There's nothing about those ships that we don't like except for the propulsion issues that they've had. So they are beautiful ships and our favorite class of ship.
What kind of stateroom did you book on this 6-night cruise, and what did you think of it throughout the voyage?
For the first time, booked a spa cabin. We had an interior spa cabin. We've never used any of the spa services before, so we thought we'd check this out. And the interior, the cabin is pretty much as any other interior cabin, except for it's kind of got a green look to it instead of the usual colors. It's just to make it look different, I guess. Different door too. The hallway is got more of a green carpet, and the doors are a little different style and stuff to make it look a little fancier, kind of like they do with the Havana areas. We get some nicer soap and stuff like that, but it was, standard interior cabin otherwise. So yeah, it was fine. And then the spa area was a treat. We really liked it.
So the Vista class jacuzzis in the thermal suite are more of a jacuzzi, a hot tub, right? And not like the Dream class with the thalassotherapy pool, the massive pool.
Yep. Yeah. It had one of those. And then they had these warming bed type things that you lay on, and they're nice and warm, and 4 different style saunas that you can use, and showers. Yeah, it was just, we were in there almost every day.
Did you find that there was value for what you paid for the interior spa cabin against just a regular interior cabin?
I think so. I'm not sure how much it costs to get a day pass. Would you say around $70?
Yeah, it varies, and the pricing's always fluid, but for a couple, probably $299 or so for the 6 or 7 nights.
If I remember right what the interior was back when we booked it, I would say we got a better deal by staying in the spa room than if you would have, gone and got the pass or anything like that. So yes, we did. And we really, enjoyed being able to go in there, and it wasn't ever too busy or anything. We only one time went up there where we decided to turn around and not go in because it was a little too busy. But other than that, we could go anytime we wanted. And sitting there, like I said, this was supposed to be a relaxing cruise, so that's what we did. We just would sit there and relax. And
Did you find that they capped the spa where, I mean, you said you turned around once, but most of the time that you went in there, it was okay and you found either a lounger or space in the pool?
I'm not sure if they did or not, but yeah, we were able to, except for the one time it just was a little. Actually, why we turned it. Now I remember the reason we turned around is because they were working on the spa at the time.
Gotcha.
The loungers were being used, but the spa was beat. That's why we turned around. So it wasn't to capacity or anything. It was strictly that they were working at the moment on something in there. So
the ship underwent dry dock not too long ago. Did it get USB-C plugs in the staterooms?
In only at the little desk thing. There's none by your nightstands at all.
Well, let's talk about food on Carnival Vista. We'll start at the top at the Lido Marketplace. There you have the buffet plus Guys and Blue Iguana Cantina up there. Hit us with it all. What'd you think? How were the crowds? All the good stuff.
It was never, so I don't even know, and I never heard what kind of capacity we were at, but the lines were never too bad at all for any of the places. Not even Guys or anything, which I hit about 7 times in the cruise. So the Blue Iguana, we love that. The burritos and the tacos. Buffet was pretty good. We just eat a lot throughout the day. We don't do big meals, so we always are just kind of grazing throughout the day. So every time we're at the buffet, I mean, there was something good on there to eat. And the chocolate extravaganza had too many good things. I couldn't eat all the different ones they had at that time. And that now they're always having that, what is that cheesecake on the first day?
Oh, confetti cheesecake, right?
Confetti cheesecake.
Yeah.
Yes, they had that. Had to have that the first day too. So all really good in there too. Yeah. And like I said, it wasn't too overcrowded ever. So
on that ship, is the pizza in the back or is it more towards the buffet area?
No, it's in the back by the Tides pool area and bar.
How are the lines back there?
Generally not too bad. I mean, I think the longest I ever saw was maybe 8 people.
Okay.
So they seem to keep them going pretty good, which we find on most of the ships, it does seem like that line usually gets pretty long, but they seem to do a pretty good job on this one.
How about the main dining room? What time dining did you have and how was your experience in there?
We do the anytime dining, so that was a good experience in there. Great wait staff, and I would say that about the entire crew, and really the whole cruise. Once we were on and everything, the staff, everybody, you would not know that they had the issues and that they were going to be out next week or anything like that. It was wonderful. The food was still really good and everything, so we really appreciated that. There really was no sign that they were going to be down a week, because I know we talked to our room attendant and she was a little concerned that they don't get gratuities for a week. So, that's pretty tough on them when they got a whole week where they're not going to, at least 1 week. I haven't heard any other cancellations yet, but at least 1 week with no gratuities. So
did you do any recon? Like, did you find out if the ship was actually going over to Freeport, or are they going to try to do the repairs at the dock in Port Canaveral?
From what I heard, it sounded like they were leaving it at Port Canaveral and that there were divers that were coming in there to work on that. And then, because we heard some of the staff too were going to have a day to go to like Disney Springs or something, and stuff like that. So they were going to get off the ship, it sounded like, and not totally work, because we were told they were going to be doing a whole deep cleaning of the whole ship. And that's what was going to take place with all the staff during this week, that they were going to take everything out of every cabin, clean top to bottoms, the carpets, take out all the drawers, clean so do this big, massive, deep clean. And then, but it sounded like they were still going to have some time to get off and enjoy themselves too.
All right. So any other specialty restaurants or anything you might have hit up that I may have missed?
No. When we've talked before, we had never done a specialty restaurant before, but on Venezia we did, and we did the steakhouse. And we loved it. And we debated doing it on this ship as well. But boy, that was our first specialty restaurant. And boy, we really loved it.
Okay, well, let's talk about the entertainment on this 6-night cruise. How did it stack up?
I thought it was really good. Our cruise director was Dion. I know a lot of people like him. I thought he was fine. He was fun and entertaining, just like any other cruise director. I don't know if I rate him higher or lower than any other one, but he was good. The shows were good. I'm not sure if, I can't even remember, it was Rock in the USA or something like that. I don't know if that's a newer show. I don't recall ever seeing that one before. But I did like that even though they played to a backing track, the musicians on stage were actually playing the guitar and the bass and the drums and everything along with it instead of it totally being a 100% recorded track that they're just singing to. So that was a nice show. The first comedians that were on weren't that good, but they got replaced halfway through the show or trip. And the second ones were very funny, good comedians.
Is there a Heroes tribute bar?
That seemed to be, it's because they don't seem to have a sports bar in there. So that seemed to be basically the sports bar too. So it was really crowded on some NFL game days there. So, but yes, they do have that. And the other entertainment, you'll have the Ocean Plaza, a band playing there and stuff like that. Fairly good. And stuff like that. The pool deck is the typical, we'll have a steel drum player out there once or twice, and then just a DJ type of thing.
The casino on this ship is on deck 4, so just underneath the main promenade. How was the cigarette situation as far as smoke in and around the casino?
This one, I would say, was probably the smokiest casino at times. Not all the time, but there was a few times that we both walked, my wife and I. She's more sensitive to it than I am, but boy, we both would walk in and just be like, this is a lot in here. So we didn't spend much time in there. And there was other times it was okay, but there was a few times, boy, it was pretty tough.
Yeah. How were the sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
Again, I don't know if we were really down a lot, but they did not seem bad at all. In fact, at one point we went out to the main pool and you could get a lounger pretty easy if you wanted. So I'm not sure why it seemed if everybody was just spread out or what, but we basically, when we wanted to go to Serenity or the main pool or anything, we were able to get around and do what we wanted to do, basically.
Okay. Very nice. Let's talk about your ports of call on this one. Of course, we've talked at the top of the show. Grand Turk and Amber Cove were axed. So you went to Half Moon, Nassau, and Freeport. So start with your first port. Give us your highlight, then you can move to the next one.
Half Moon, beautiful. We've been there before. We love that beach. That is the bluest water, the softest sand. We rented a clamshell, which if you haven't been there for a while, they moved them further down the beach. So you got to take a tram to get down to where the clams are. Before, they were kind of like right there when you got off the ship. So we had to go down there, but it was kind of nice because it was actually a little more private when we look back at where you just get off the ship. That was pretty crowded. So it was a little nicer, a little more spread out and stuff. So Half Moon is beautiful. If you get to go there, go there. We love it there.
And then what was next?
Let's see. I got to remember the order. Nassau, I believe, was the next one. And we haven't been there since they redid the port. So that was kind of nice. We just walked around and checked it out to see what had changed and things. So we just spent a couple hours going in the shops, walking around, checking everything out. And it is so much nicer than it used to be. The straw market is still there. And I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people like to go in there. We kind of like to just walk through there and check it all out and stuff and everything. But that whole port area with the extra shops and there's some bathrooms right there now and everything. It is really, really a lot better than it used to be.
That was my next question, to see, what you thought, kind of having gone there times before the port opened back in 2022. And then, or I guess 2023. And then it opened up. And a lot of people are saying that we had Chris on a couple of weeks ago who sailed a Disney ship, and he was just absolutely praising it, saying, yeah, it's like 1,000 times better than it was before, when you had to queue up either in that hot festival plaza building there and kind of snake your way around, or not much options right around the port, just kind of going through those 2 security guards at a shackle fence. But it's I haven't actually been through it since it has been opened yet, so I'm excited to check it out. But you're saying improvements were much needed then? Yeah,
I think so. And I don't know if it's because there's a little more spread out, but you walk off to and you pretty much were bombarded with people wanting you to get a taxi or this or that or excursion and stuff. And yes, there's still some of that, but it wasn't as bad because it seemed like it was really congested in the one area before, where now it's just a lot bigger area. And I'm not sure, did they widen the actual piers out there too? Because I really kind of felt like they were a little bit bigger, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually widened them. They might have, or they took that divider out. Because remember, there was that big divider, and now it's just like one big awning that goes all the way down the dock. So they may have widened it. I'm really not sure, but they did. They definitely added a lot of dock space because, like when we did the Blue Lagoon excursion, there were multiple boats doing it there with us, and we were all like, I think 7 or 8 boats were all docked right there on the cruise ship dock, right across from our ship. So plenty of dock space, and it wouldn't surprise me if they actually widened the dock as well.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't tell, but I knew something was different, and I wasn't quite sure what. But
so after Nassau, then I'm sorry, did you do anything like excursions or junk canoe or anything while you were there?
No, just totally walked around and checked it all out.
Gotcha. And then Freeport, how was that?
Never been to Freeport, so this is our first time there. So I guess being it got changed there was kind of, all right for us to be able to check it out. It's there is some little shops and places to eat right off when you get off, but it is more of an industrial port. As soon as you get off the ship, there's not a lot to just walk to as far as we can tell. So we had booked an excursion to a resort, and the name is escaping me right now. But it was fairly expensive. It was all inclusive and was more than our $200 onboard credit. So that's basically what we used that for. And we just spent the day at this resort and had food and drinks and sat out by the pool and swam in the ocean a bit and just relaxed like we planned on doing in Grand Turk or Amber Cove. So
okay. So you kind of made your own little Amber Cove Grand Turk day there in Freeport. Was it an all-inclusive type of situation there where you got all the food you wanted, all the drink you wanted, and all that?
Yeah, it sure was. So we're not big drinkers, but we took a little bit advantage of that. So
yeah, no, I hear you. That's cool. I think that when your ship was in port, my buddy was actually on the Margaritaville ship when you were there as well. Did you peek over and see that Jimmy Buffett ship while you were docked?
Oh yeah, I took a few pictures of that and stuff too, because I was trying to remember what ship that was originally, because it is a lot older one. I don't even know if does it even have any balconies on there?
Very few, but that was the Costa Classica, or I guess the Costa Neoclassica, after they did a really long extension on it back in 2012. They cut the centerpiece, or added a centerpiece, I guess I should say, and they renamed the ship. But yeah, it was an old Costa ship from back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah. I noticed that you had a tugboat, though, guiding you in and out of the port. I thought that was interesting. Carnival Vista did. I don't know if you saw that from your view when you were on the ship, but the pictures my buddy sent me had 1 or 2 tugboats trailing behind the ship going in and out.
Yeah, I did not. At Freeport, we did, yes, and I'm not quite sure why. And I heard, too, the same thing when they came into Canaveral, that they had tugs with it too. So I don't know if that had anything to do with propulsion and a little steering, that they needed a little extra, some eyes down below or a little push or something. I'm not quite sure what that was about. And I wasn't sure if that was common for Freeport, being it did seem like that's kind of a little bit narrower of an area for them to get out of.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you think about it, though, with the propulsion, those pods also steer the ship too, because those are the rudders as well. So that goes sideways. You're like a bull in a china shop at that point, right?
Yeah. And there, when we left, they did spin all the way around, and it spun pretty well, it seemed. So I'm not quite sure why, but you could definitely tell when you look at the wake. I'm assuming everybody kept saying one side was down, but that's what it looked like too. When you look at the wake, it looked like it was only the one side that was churning up the water.
So you make your way back on the ship and you're heading back towards Port Canaveral. Now, was this sailing, did it have any of the revolts and protests and all that stuff on, people screaming at the upper management in the theaters or the limelight? I know I've seen a couple of videos. It's just hard to tell these days what sailing they actually come from.
Yeah, from what we understand, all those videos were the one where they were supposed to go to Aruba.
Oh, yeah.
And people were already on board. Some were saying they were already unpacked by the time they told them they weren't going, and gave them the option, if you want to get off. Well, so yeah, but we did not see any of that. Just a little bit of the talk of how, the credit was not quite right, and they couldn't cancel in that short a time to to change plans or anything like that. So, and then there was some that were really unhappy because they knew the cruise after us was getting canceled and they were getting a full refund and a future cruise credit. So when they heard how much they were getting, and then we just got $200, it kind of soured a lot of people. But overall, the consensus still, even on the Facebook page, when I took our little poll about what they thought people did and stuff, is that they still had a really good time, enjoyed the cruise. They just thought it could be maybe handled a little bit better.
Yeah. I guess that's one of those things too, where it's very important to read the cruise contract and what they have to provide. All they have to do is provide a transportation round trip from Port Canaveral. It really doesn't matter where they go. If you're going just by the cruise contract, anything past that is a gesture of goodwill.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people understood that too, that the cruise contract, they don't guarantee you any of the ports really generally. So, most people got that. It just was, a little like, this stinks. One person in particular, if she was going to cruise to the Bahamas, she lived a lot closer to another port. She could have gone in instead of driving 14 hours to the Port Canaveral and getting on a ship there just to go to the Bahamas. So, just small things like that made it a little rough and stuff. But overall, most people still said they really enjoyed and they had a really good time on the ship.
Any other, before we get to debark here, any other chatter you may have heard in any of the events in the theaters or Q&As with the staff? Or they probably avoided that little session on your voyage, but like any other kind of chatter of what's going on with the dry dock? You said they're taking everything out of the staterooms, deep cleaning. They're going to try to fix that propulsion. Did they mention anything else that they might be doing, or is it just kind of because they have all these people, all the crew on board, they're just kind of doing like a really big deep clean, as you were saying?
Yeah, and I really kind of had it. I really kind of felt like they must feel they're going to get it all repaired and done in this week, because it didn't seem like they had any concern about another cancellation. So I'm kind of hoping the cruise that happens after the one that's not going right now happens, because they must have a good feeling about getting it fixed. But like you said, how many problems has this ship had? I mean, isn't this the one that they actually brought in that floating dry dock and had to fix it the one time, like in 2019 or something? Yeah,
from Northern Europe. They brought it over from Northern Europe down off the coast of Freeport. They brought Vista from Galveston down to there. So it took it out of service for like 2 weeks or so. It didn't take long after that repair for it to start to have issues again. So it almost seems like that ship is plagued and maybe should become an artificial reef with the other ones in the Gulf of Mexico.
Or, that's one thing we thought about too is, obviously even with the one down or whatever, they had enough speed to get us to the Bahamas. So I was thinking maybe these ships need to be shorter run ships or something so they don't go as far. But yeah, when this particular ship, in fact, I think the next sailing might be another, maybe not the next one. I can't remember, but they're doing Aruba again here coming up. So, that's pretty far. So I hope they can make that and not have any issues. I would think you'd want to do a shorter run first to make sure it's all working right. But
yeah, I'm sure they'll give it a quick little test drive after they do whatever they're doing underwater there. So you make your way out, rather off the ship. It's time to debark. How was the debarkation process? And like with there not being any passengers coming on board, were they as strict saying, be out of your room by 7:30? Or could you stay a little bit later if you wanted?
8:30 was the time they were saying get off. So, I don't know. Is 7:30 your usual time?
Yeah,
I think they said 8:30.
Yeah, every cruise ship varies.
Yeah, so they said 8:30, and everybody seemed to debark pretty easy, and we did too. We did self-assist and got off the ship, and we had arranged to use the Carnival shuttle to get to the airport. So we just did that and got off pretty easy, and seemed to be no issues and getting people off. So
very good. So looking back at this cruise, then. Minus the port situation where you had to swap out some ports. Actually, let me ask you. What was I going to say here? Oh, okay. Well, this ship for you rounds out the Vista class of cruise ships. So do you have any first-time tips, since you've been on all three in the class, first-time tips of anyone wanting to or maybe considering a Carnival Vista class vessel?
If you are going to take a Vista class ship, do the Havana area. We wish we would have done the Havana area on this ship, but we booked this cruise kind of later and it was already sold out. And that area is our favorite. We love that on the Vista class ships. We don't think they're as nice on the XL class. Is that what Celebration is? XL class. So yeah, they're smaller and not as nice. They're beautiful on there. So if you can do Havana, do that. The ship is beautiful. Spa area, that was good too. So even if you can't do Havana, do the spa area and take advantage of that, because it's kind of like your own private retreat, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they do the day passes, but you know, it's nice to go off and sit in there, and there's huge windows in there that look out the side. You can see the ocean as you're sailing and stuff and relaxing and stuff. So yeah, it's a beautiful ship, and I believe they're just laid out really nice. Except for going through the casino to get to the back on the one, like you said, fourth floor. If it's super smoky, that could be a little bit of a thing. But other than that, I also just think these ships are laid out really nice. And you seem to be able to move from each end very easily all the time.
I didn't ask you, for the dining, did you get to take part in Carnival's Sea Day brunch? And if so, how was it?
That's something we've never done. And we talked about that, and I forgot that we were going to attempt to do that this time, because we have never done a Sea Day brunch.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised to hear that, as much as you like to graze all day.
Yeah. and we talked about it too. And now that you said that, it's like, oh yeah, we forgot about that. Darn.
Yeah. All right. Well, looking back, all things considered, your biggest highlight for this 6-night sailing?
Definitely Half Moon Cay. If you like the beach, you like to relax. I mean, that water just doesn't even have waves, and you can walk out. No, you don't need any water shoes, anything. That sand is so soft, and I mean, it is such a slow slope out there. You can walk so far out and just enjoy that beach, and water is so nice. So Half Moon is definitely the highlight. The spa was a definite highlight. We've already booked another cruise with a spa room on there because we really liked it so much too, that we're going to do that again. And just the whole time getting away. Anytime we're on a ship is a good time.
What's your next cruise, and what ship did you wind up booking?
We usually like to do it in February, but we haven't booked anything, so I don't know if we're going to yet or not. So the next one is actually July of next year, and we are doing MSC World America.
Okay, there you go. Right after the debut was in April, I think, right? World America debuts in Miami.
Yep, comes out in April, and we're leaving on our anniversary on July 19th. So it'll only have been sailing a number of weeks, so can't wait to see how that is. Where we did the MSC in Europe, and we want to see what kind of differences between the MSCs in the United States and the Europe, because we're not sure what things on the ship in Europe pertain mainly to Europe, and then how they operate in the United States. So this will be our first MSC sailing out of the United States.
Tim, if we want to see any of your reviews of the hotels or any stateroom tours or spa tours you may have done on this sailing, where can we find you?
We're online as Cruising Together Couple. That's the website.com, cruisingtogethercouple.com. And it's Cruising Together Couple on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You can find us on all those places. And yes, we got plenty of videos, and we release a new video every Friday.
We've been talking with Tim all the way from Fargo, North Dakota, some of the coldest winters in the U.S. up there in Fargo. Because it gets in the negatives quite a bit, right, in the wintertime?
Oh, yeah. And there's weeks where you don't get above zero. So yeah, in January, you might not see above zero for 2 to 3 weeks. So,
well, enjoy those wind chills, my friend. And it's always good talking to you, buddy.
Thank you. Nice talking to you too.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, Give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,